Welcome to Devotions with Dave. It's Wednesday, March 25th, and I'm here in my office in front of the Space Invaders wall, ready to go over Mark chapter 5 with you. It's best if you would read this ahead of time. I'm going to make reference to a few of the verses, but I'm going to assume you're familiar with it. So if you haven't already, take a break now, read through Mark chapter 5 before you continue. So Mark chapter 5, I'm kind of, maybe not a title, but I'm sort of, in my mind, this is about Jesus manifesting his power. We're going to see some pretty amazing things that Jesus does. And this, interestingly, sort of is a great ad. Like yesterday on when I did Mark chapter 4, we saw the power of Jesus as he calmed the storm. And the disciples were amazed, like, who is this guy that he can do even that? We're going to see the power of Jesus come out in a pretty strong way here today in Mark chapter 5. There's two main parts to Mark chapter 5. Verses 1 to 20 are Jesus and the demon-possessed man, and that's quite the story. And then the second part, verses 21 to 43, is sort of a story within a story. Jesus is on his way to help heal someone, and he heals somebody else on the way, and then the first person dies, but Jesus is able to make them come back to life. So very powerful things going on here. So let's start with part 1. This is Mark chapter 5, verses 1 to 20, Jesus and the demon-possessed man. So at the end of chapter 4, Jesus and the disciples were crossing the lake, the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus calmed the storm. But when they get to the other side, we pick up here in chapter 5. They arrive, and as they arrive, this crazy man, this demon-possessed man, greets them. And we're told that he lives among the tombs, that he is often heard howling, and he cuts himself with rocks. And they've tried to capture him, and they've chained him up, but he just breaks the chains. He has so much power, this demonic power that's within him. And so they can't really capture him, and he just lives here among the tombs. And I thought about that. I thought, that's just a terrible story. This poor man. I mean, people must have been so afraid of him and pitied him all at the same time. But Jesus arrives, and this man approaches Jesus and bows down before him. And then the demon inside of the man speaks out loud, calling Jesus the Son of God, saying, begging him for mercy. What are you here to destroy us before our time? And so Jesus talks with the demons, asks him what his name is, and the response is Legion, and which literally, literally Legion was 1,000, but he says there's many of us, and I can't even imagine such a thing, but probably hundreds, maybe 1,000 or more demons living within this man, which is why he was so crazy, which is why he had this supernatural strength. And I'll be honest with you, I don't understand everything about how demonology works, but we learn a few things in this chapter because the demons got a pretty good idea Jesus is going to help this guy. And they say, well, when you cast us out, how about if you let us go in? Nearby there was a herd of pigs, about 2,000 pigs. So let us go into them. And you're thinking that's really crazy. So obviously demons find some sort of relief to inhabit another being and not just be roaming without. I don't understand it. But so Jesus agrees, and the demons leave the man. They go into the pigs. And I don't know what happened with the pigs, but they freak out. They start a stampede running, they run off a cliff, and they all die. And so things aren't going real well here. But the man, they're going great for him. He recovers. It says the townspeople saw this happen. They ran to tell everyone when they came back. Here's this crazy man just sitting there in his right mind having an ordinary conversation with Jesus. And the man tells Jesus, I want to follow you now. I want to go where you go. And Jesus says, no, you need to go back and be with your family. And so the man goes back home, and he tells everyone about what Jesus has done. Becomes an amazing evangelist, according to what we see here. But the townspeople, on the other hand, they react. They're like, Jesus, we think you need to leave. Like, they want him to leave. And so I thought that was quite an interesting reaction. So one of my biggest responses is, why would the people want Jesus to leave? Jesus just did this great work. He cast out the demons. He saved this man. Well, the bottom line is not everybody likes the things that God is doing. They really didn't like what he did. He disturbed things. Somebody lost a whole herd of 2,000 pigs. They're all dead now. This crazy man is now a sane man. And so I got to tell you, and you probably already know this, when God is moving and doing supernatural things, it disturbs some people. When we see strange things happening, it bothers us. And the crazy, this crazy man, his transformation is so dramatic in this. This gives me hope that God's transforming power is able to overcome any problem we have. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I have this situation, I have this problem, and it's never going to be overcome. I'm going to live with it all my life. I want you to know, if Jesus can heal this man, he can heal and deliver and transform any of us. And so to me, that's great hope. So that's the first part. Second part, where Jesus heals and raises the dead, he's teaching, and while he's teaching, Jairus, the synagogue leader, comes and says, my daughter is dying. Jesus, you got to come. I know if you just pray, if you lay your hands on her, she'll recover. And so Jesus agrees to go. He follows Jairus. But on the way, another incident happens. There's a woman who had been sick for 12 years. She's been bleeding steadily or hemorrhaging for 12 years. She's seen many doctors. She spent all the money she has, and she's not gotten well. And she's determined. She's heard of Jesus. She's like, if I can just get close to this guy, if I can even just touch his robe, I know I will be healed. That's pretty amazing. And it turns out to be true. And so the woman, because there's a crowd moving with Jesus on the way to Jairus' house. This woman somehow manages to muscle her way up, and she touches Jesus' robe, and she's instantly healed. She can feel it, the power within her. She can feel the sickness leave, and so can Jesus. And so Jesus is like, hey, something happened here. Who touched me? And of course, he's in a massive crowd of people around him, so I'm sure a lot of people touched him. But the woman knew, and she's afraid. She's afraid to almost tell Jesus it was me. But of course, Jesus isn't angry, and he declares to her, you're healed because of your faith. And we're going to see this is a common theme here in Mark chapter 5. You're healed because of your faith. And so he has this encounter with this woman. She's healed, but then messengers come. Because of this delay, Jairus' daughter has died. But Jesus says to him, interestingly, just have faith. Just believe. And so Jesus orders everyone to stay behind except three of his disciples, Peter, James, and John, his three closest. And they go back with Jairus to his house. And already the mourning has begun. People are wailing and singing. They're in the funeral process. They're in the grieving. And Jesus says to him, oh, don't worry. She's fine. She's only asleep. Of course, they laugh at Jesus. They know when someone's dead. But Jesus goes into her, tells her to get up. And she immediately gets up. He says, get her something to eat. And she's fine. Now, some observations from all this. First, we see the power of God deliver this demonic man in an amazing way, and most of the townspeople are distressed and disturbed by it. This time, we see the power of God healing this woman and raising this girl from the dead, and everybody is happy. So my conclusion is we love healings or raising the dead if we were ever to see such a thing, but we don't like demons very much. Like we don't like things that we don't understand, and so. Even when the power of God is working, sometimes we have a hard time with it. But we like healings. But what's also interesting to me through this is how highly faith is emphasized here in this second part. Both for the woman who was healed, who touched Jesus' robe, and her hemorrhage ended, and for Jairus, just believe and your daughter can live. So faith becomes really important. So let me ask some questions. Do you believe Jesus can do anything? can Jesus do the impossible? Because for Jairus at that moment, his daughter was dead. It's over. There's nothing. That's it. Death is death. But not with Jesus. Nothing is impossible. So where is your faith? What do you believe? What impossible thing in your life do you want to ask Jesus for? A physical healing? A relational healing? A financial provision during this time? Something else? I mean, things that might seem like there's no way I can get through this. You know, some of you are not working and not getting income, and you're hoping that the government's going to come through with the unemployment or something will happen, and you're just thinking, you're looking ahead, and you're like, this is impossible. Or you're thinking, we don't get along here in my family, and we're going to probably kill each other before this is over, or close. I need a relational healing. Or maybe there, maybe, hopefully not, but it's like, more people are going to likely get sick, and it may be some of us or people we know. And so, my assignment for you, your next step from this lesson is ask God to give you more faith and trust him to give you more. What is it? What's this impossible thing that you want God to do? I mean, is it impossible for God to deliver us from this virus? But then probably the bigger question is, what if he doesn't? Will we still love and trust him if he doesn't answer our prayer? Or if we get sick, or someone we know gets sick or dies? I mean, these are going to be difficult times ahead. We don't know what to face. So as I wrap this up, I want to look, to me, the key verse in chapter 5 is verse 36. And I'm going to read 35 and 36 because 35 sort of sets it up. This is the faith, and don't fear. It says, so this is in part 2, and Jesus is delayed to go help Jairus' daughter. And the woman has just been healed. He says, while he was still speaking to her, this woman who had been healed after being sick for 12 years, it says, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him, your daughter is dead. There is no use troubling the teacher now. Key verse 36. But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, don't be afraid, just have faith. And so that's my word for you today. Don't be afraid, just have faith. Nothing is impossible with Jesus. It may not work out the way you think it will or you think it should, but just have faith. Don't be afraid. Put your trust in Jesus. When the fear of COVID-19 starts to rise and continues to ride, when sometimes it feels like your anxiety is out of control, you don't know what's coming, when you can't seem to quiet your mind or even sleep because of the troubledness, remember the words of Jesus. Don't be afraid, just have faith. You can't control your future, but you can put your trust in our Lord. And I pray that each one of us will have increased faith, that we will put our trust in God and not allow our fear to rule us. Do what you can, be wise, be smart, and trust in the Lord for the rest, because there's a lot that's beyond our control. So, till next time, keep the faith, keep social distancing, put your trust in the Lord. God bless.